Folks, I am Robert Lunte from Course Creek Consulting and the Vocalist Studio, and we have a super cool show, super cool streamcast show for you today. I'm going to be super excited to introduce Todd here any moment. But before I get into that, I just want to make sure that you guys that are watching this show, go out to the comments and let us know where you're from, and we'll do our best to have a little bit of Q&A time later in the interview. So make sure you're on that comment section, and I'm just going to make sure that you guys have that. I'm putting a link into the comment section right now. So if you click on this link in the comment section, it enables you the ability to leave comments. You have to click on that link because Facebook has a sort of a funny policy about comments on live streamcasting shows unless you click this link. So go ahead and look at that, you guys. All right, and before we get started, I'm just gonna talk a little bit about our sponsor, Kajabi. Kajabi is a learning management system that I use personally for myself and our clients at Course Creek Consulting. Is really the platform for online course creators and solopreneurs. It's, in my opinion, having been on so many different platforms and CMS systems in the past, nothing beats Kajabi. When I first got into my Kajabi site for the Vocalist Studio, honest to God, it was like, wow, this user interface and user experience thinks like a course creator. And so I just want to give you guys a recommendation for Kajabi. It is fantastic. Now let's get to our show. Our guest is Todd Ostrander, Managing Director from JDMerit. I'm just going to read a little bit from his short bio here. You guys ready for this? Mr. Ostrander is a visionary with the ability to simplify complex problems and turn them into significant market opportunities. While he has a broad range of skills from finance to procurement, strategic marketing, and product strategy, his core functional expertise is in bringing new products to existing markets, as well as identifying and creating new market opportunities with specific focus on go-to-market, intellectual property, and capitalization strategies. Good grief, Todd. You have been busy. Oh, heck of a resume. Without further ado, Todd, please tell us briefly about your background.
Sure. Well, thanks, Robert. I really appreciate the intro, and I'm sure you flowered that a little bit more than what was real. I've been very fortunate, very blessed throughout my life to have had the opportunity to work with, really some great people. And I only do what I do as a result of having great people around me. But I was fortunate back in the mid 1990s to have been sponsored, if you will, from a large corporate entity that was owned at the time. The largest shareholder was Paul Allen. He kicked me out of the nest, so to speak, and funded my first company for me. We turned that company into a $1.4 billion market cap technology company. Wow. And it was an amazing ride. It was an absolutely amazing ride. What happens in that process is usually you learn a lot, but you also get a little bit too full of yourself. And we took some of the learning and some of the arrogance and kind of merged them together into creating a couple of others. But I've been fortunate enough to have been backed by venture capitalists 4 different times in my career, with 4 different companies, each one unique and special in their own right. And then I finally told my wife I wouldn't do it again a couple of years ago, and that's why I'm an investment banker now, helping other companies do the same thing I used to do.
Wow, is that all? I was kind of hoping that you could give us some content in this show this morning. My God. So, all right. So you told your wife, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to try something else. Sounds like an opportunity to share a little bit of a hero story there. Can you just tell us a little bit, like, just, why were you done with that particular path, and
Yeah.
what inspired you to move on? Because I think a lot of people are in a situation these days where they may need to make some changes too.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question there's going to be a lot of people that would consider themselves entrepreneurs on this call. There's a lot of people who would like to be entrepreneurs and really, don't know what it takes to get there. I have the scars on my back to help share, and my objective in life is to help buffer, if you will, others from receiving the scars that I have. It's a long process. My wife has a famous saying that I've quoted many, many times, and it usually shows up in conversations like this, and that is that I can't eat equity. And it takes, if I look at my 4 companies that I've taken personally through the process, it was a 5 to 7 year run each time. And many, many, many of those months and years, we went without salaries. And because at the end of the day, you're building something, you're starting from scratch. It's your own resources.
Right.
You're trying to bring people along with you that you're underpaying for market, and all with the promise that there's going to be an exit at the end of the day. We've been very, very fortunate that we've had a few of those exits. But many people don't. And the reality is when you look at the real numbers of entrepreneurs, the majority don't end up having those types of exits. And so, we hope to be able to provide capabilities and learning and knowledge and processes and tools and that type of thing to people to be able to help them, achieve where many others haven't.
In your capacity as a managing director at JDMerit, it would seem.
Yeah, that's correct. Just a real brief on JDMerit. We're a boutique investment banking firm.
Okay.
That about 70% of our business is helping companies sell to realize that exit. About 20% of our business is organizations that want to acquire other companies, and we help them find those companies to acquire. And in about 10% of the cases, we actually will help raise capital for companies that are at a point of scalability and a point of maturity.
All right. It's at its core, it's a sales and business development activity, isn't it?
Yeah, at its core, it is. I mean, anytime you're in the process of working with companies like that, you're always evaluating their ability to maximize their value in the marketplace. And in many cases, they're not ready. And so we'll come in alongside, because we are entrepreneurs ourselves and we've been there and gone through that process. We're able to come alongside them many times and help them put in place the things that they need in order to be able to achieve that maximum value in the market from a buyer.
I'm laughing because are you guys catching all this? I mean, you're hanging on to this. It's good. It's good. That's sort of the talk track that I was expecting and looking forward to, and it's going to be refreshing for a lot of people that'll be watching this. Todd. All right, so let's dive in. Todd and I, in preparation for this interview, we wanted to, of course, have conversations about things that were relevant to Course Creek audience, Course Creek clients, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, is sort of the world that I've been playing in for years, and so. I'm not going to share my hero story. You can find it in other content at YouTube. But I'll just tell you, one of the things that turned my life around was understanding scalability and what that's all about. And it's quite clear that if you don't have scalability, if you can't scale your business, you're going to go down a path of lacking growth and maybe even some personal misery because you may not understand it. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about scalability. All right. All right. So scalability. Todd, what are the best forms of scalability? And can you name some business models that people in these difficult times could achieve for scalability?
Sure.
The average guy.
Yeah. So, it's always interesting. And I'm always somebody who will break things down to their absolute least common denominator. So in order to understand scalability, you also have to understand what scalability is not. Okay. Scalability is not a single shingle that gets paid dollars for hours exclusively for their time. In other words, it's somebody who scalability is not somebody that has a consulting business that can only share their knowledge and nobody else's. And the reality is that because they're getting paid dollars for hours, $1 for an hour of time, or whatever the fee rate is, and that is something that they can't duplicate. Scalability is all about duplication. And so the same would be true for a business owner who has a retail business that is very isolated to a geographic location, and it only works in that particular geographic location. That means that that they have not figured out how to duplicate what it is that they have. So scalability is really all about duplication, and it's about doing so through the use of people, capital, and tools. Sometimes that capital is their own capital. Sometimes the capital is other people's capital. I happen to operate in the world of other people's capital in the majority of the things that I do. If you take a look at the 4 businesses that I took through the venture capital process, and a couple of companies that I'm now working with as well as a consultant to help them do the same thing that I've been able to accomplish. Scalability is really about maximizing the people, the tools, and the capital for building a large duplicatable business. So everything that you should be focused on from a scalability perspective is, what are the mechanisms in each and every company? What are the tools? What are the people? What are the resources that you have available? And how do I duplicate each and every function? I learned a long time ago that it's not about me, that it's about the people that I put around me. Yeah. And I always wanted to be, when I was a CEO of a company, I always wanted to be the dumbest guy in the room, because if I could accomplish that, it meant that I've hired people in their respective roles that are able to duplicate not only my time, but their time, and their focus was on understanding exactly how to do that. So it didn't matter whether it was a sales position, a marketing position, an operations position, a finance position, an HR position, you name it. It was all about understanding, how do we build replicatable processes in each and every function that can scale the business to a point of, in each of our cases, we built companies that had $1 billion plus opportunities and ideas.
Okay. And that's just as fantastic and super impressive. But what I'm hearing, what we're hearing in that response is a lot of, we need MBAs. We need billions of dollars of funding. We need to pay employees. And that's sort of the arena that it sounds like you were describing a little bit. But a lot of people they're not at that position where they can hire employees and, ask for $100 million of funding. I mean, I guess they could, right? They don't know how, they don't have the contacts, all that sort of stuff. So can I ask you to just sort of bring it down to a folkier level? Just the average guy, the voice coach, okay? And how can they achieve some scalability? Now I have some ideas here, but before I toss out some other ideas about scalability to you, I want to challenge you a little bit.
Yeah.
See what advice would you give to just like a voice coach, or somebody that just needs that first leg up, that isn't a candidate?
So and first of all, so in each one of my companies, it was years before we actually had venture capital financing, and that's because there's a spark, there's a tenor, there's a natural tendency for entrepreneurs to just be get it done people, and it's difficult to find those as MBAs that have worked in big companies. And so frankly, there's that entrepreneurial spirit that you've heard that term before, that exists in entrepreneurs, that is what drives them each and every day that they get up. And what you're really looking for is, you're looking for a group of people that have that spirit. It's a can-do spirit. It's a failure is not an option spirit, et cetera. And those are things you don't learn in business school. That's just the school of, I've got it. I wake up in the morning, and frankly, my life and my wife depend upon my ability to put food on the table, and we're going to get it done. And that's the starting point for all of this, right? Okay. So then we take that and let's take what's happened in the last year with COVID as an example. You know, COVID took an awful lot of things away from us, but it also gave us some things. So one of the things that it gave us is the recognition, and this is directly associated with you and your business, Robert, and other people that are looking at this. It gave you an opportunity to look at how you deliver your business differently. You know, you've been a vocal coach. You do a great job of sitting side by side with somebody and listening to them and helping them articulate what it takes to optimize the God-given talent that they've been given as a vocalist. When you're sitting side by side, you have the nuances associated with that, but you also realize that when COVID hit, that number one is you couldn't see as many people in that context, but you also then had available to you delivery vehicles like this one that we're on right now. You now can reach literally millions of people in a single event that you couldn't reach before. And it's given you the opportunity to open your eyes to other distribution opportunities. Companies around the globe are now starting to figure that out and are now starting to learn how to scale their business using the tools that are available to us now. 20 years ago, when I started my second company, you know, we still had to depend on face-to-face meetings and face-to-face activity, and relationship was the critical component of what it is that we did on a daily basis. In today's world, the tools exist for us to do things like what we're doing right now, reach millions of people, deliver the same message, but do so at an exponential level. And the process of scalability is about learning how to do this not just once, but on a repeatable, replicatable, duplicatable process. And I think that's what you're doing with your business. And I think that other people sitting on this call right now can look at it the same way. So then what they really need is they need people that can help them understand how to use those tools, what types of processes that they can put in place, and how to maximize the use of these tools in order to be able to get it out there. I can tell you that personally, I'm not great at process and procedure. I can usually come up with the ideas in terms of how to get there, but I need people around me that are much better than I am at project management and process delivery. And, you know, I can work together with them and come up with it, but usually it takes other people that are really good at the, you know, the engineering and the procedural side of things in order to work with me in order to be able to execute on some of those things.
Yes. All right. You're good to you're just great. You're just full of like snappy responses on this. All right. So I promised you some other scalability ideas other than land $100 million funding and hire employees and grow. All right. So I'm gonna throw some ideas out to you, and I just want you to sort of tell us what is scalable in the idea. Okay. What is it that makes it scalable? Okay. All right.
Sure.
Online courses, something you and I have been spending some time talking a lot about last year.
Sure. Historically, you know, I used to spend a lot of time in the 1990s going around the country delivering seminars to typically rooms of 30 to 50 people on utilizing and maximizing procurement expertise inside of large corporations. And my customers at that point in time were companies like MasterCard and 3M and you know, Deutsche Bank, et cetera. And I had to be the guy on the plane. And if you believe it or not, we actually use things like slides. I mean, like real slides from a camera to deliver our presentations at the time. Not a very scalable environment. Today, that same capability is available to us in what we're doing in this direct environment. So it really is a function of getting learning to understand that while the delivery still is human, the tools that we have to maximize delivery no longer has to be.
So would you say that the element that's the things that make online courses scalable would be your point, tools, because it requires specialized platforms, learning management systems like Mojave, which I was mentioning earlier in the show, and you know, even like video editing software that is advanced. And I remember back in the day, I used to edit videos and it would crash your computer because it was so slow. Now they've got these really great apps that'll help you do that. Okay, that's cool. Here's another. Ready for another one?
Yep.
All right. In this idea, what is it that makes it scalable, therefore a recommended idea? Affiliates, resellers, and referral partners. What's scalable in that idea?
So if you look at your and my network, we have a limited number of people in our network. As soon as I connect to you, how many, roughly how many people are on this call today? Several hundred.
Yep.
That's several hundred new people that I don't have in my network, which means that by definition, the scalability of my capability has now been expanded by your network. That's an affiliate. My network, I've got, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 people that are LinkedIn connections of mine. As soon as we publish this on LinkedIn, all of a sudden your network, you, Robert Lunte's network, grows by the same number of people that I have in my network. So I can either go one-to-one on an individual basis to each one of the people in your network, or you could go one-to-one on an individual basis to my network. But if we share our networks and we become affiliates through affiliate marketing opportunities, now what we're doing is we're expanding that potential to our joint networks. And when you do that multiple times over, you have a 1 to the n, or an exponential factor associated with reaching out to networks. The key form of that, however, and this is where I think people get lost in the process, is a lot of times people will just assume that they can attach themselves to anybody and it will grow their network. It's kind of like the same philosophy that, any PR is good PR. That's not necessarily the case. At the end of the day, people are going to want to know, what is your credibility and what is my credibility? And am I willing to trust the person that I'm affiliated with? So at the end of the day, it still has to be built on trust. That's the human factor in these affiliate relationships that can't be undervalued. You have to place the value on, who do you want to be in business with? We're seeing that more today than ever before. And because people are making judgments online about who they want to be affiliated with. And I think that that's a critical component. If you're affiliated with somebody, are they somebody, and do they have the credibility and the trust that you're willing to market with?
That's good. That's a good additional little nugget. Be careful, who you're associated with and who you're hanging with. Yeah. Thank you for the reminder. All right, here's another one. What is it that makes this idea scalable? And there's a lot of this going on right now, but it's got a gotcha to it. There's a gotcha in this, and I want to see if you pick it up, Todd. Okay, it scales, but it's got a gotcha. Group coaching.
Yeah. So group coaching, in other words, the concept, and let me just verify that I make sure that I'm talking about group coaching, would be the idea of a single coach operating in the context of coaching multiple people at the same time. Correct?
Using internet technology,
using tools, right? So I've got a group, and there's groups out there, especially for entrepreneurs, groups like Vistage and others, that are great mechanisms to provide entrepreneurs with a group of people that are effectively their peers, solicited by a leader that is effectively is the coordinator and leader of a group like that. A group coaching is can be scalable. It gives you the opportunity to, in the today's technology, where I used to have to carve out an entire half a day, for instance, to meet with a group and have a 4 or 5 hour session. I would burn an entire day in that particular group session as part of what I'm doing. Today, in the duplicatable fashion of scalability, right? I can do 3 or 4 of those in the same day because I no longer have the travel requirements. I have technology that allows me to turn one group on and turn another group off, or turn one group off and turn another group on momentarily. I don't have any travel time in between. I don't have any logistics issues, and everybody can be sitting where they're located. And the other thing that happens is that, and I've noticed this specifically, is, typically when you're going face to face with somebody, it was not uncommon for people to be 5 or 10 minutes late for a meeting, and the meeting would start 5 or 10 minutes after your originally, proposed time. Online, meetings start on time. They always start on time because you don't have any travel issues. People aren't stuck in traffic. You don't have, people stuck trying to get through the elevator. You don't have any of those issues. Today, meetings start on time, and they're far more efficient online than they were in a logistics required environment. So it's far more scalable today than it was.
Mm-hmm. I'm imagining that when all the vaccines are working and we sort of get past this this virus issue, I have this thought, and you're the perfect guy to just sort of bounce this off of. Like, I have this vision of people in a boardroom in organizations and companies saying, okay, we got through this. What do we bring in all the overhead again? Do we we ramp up again? And I have this vision of maybe the bean counter in the corner raising his hand saying, you know what? As a matter of fact, it's been tough. We laid off a third of our employees and everybody got going Zoom and stuff, but don't be too hasty, because the truth is we saved about $5 million a month on overhead. I don't want to sound, I'm getting rid of overhead that's not efficient, and cutting out all that travel and everything else. That's like, when everything's all said and done, and everything's happy again, do you think that's gonna happen, Todd?
Absolutely. We've got clients right now that we're working with. I helped family sell a business back in December. Nice big transaction for them. And before the buyer ultimately signed on the bottom line, we were well into the process in September, and their lease for their building, and it was a company in Florida, their lease for their building came up for a renewal. And they had, I don't remember how many square feet it was, but basically they renewed, but they only renewed a third of what their former lease was.
Yeah.
And they had learned by that point in time, after 6 months of being in the middle of the pandemic, that they were actually, in many cases in the organization, more efficient offline, or online as it would be, right? They were more efficient in a work from home environment than they were in a work from the office environment. There are studies that have been done recently that suggest that there's as many as 2.5 to 3 hours a day that people are gaining as a result of work from home capabilities. I mean, that's huge. I mean, we're talking about 10% of a person's life in that context. Add that up, and you've got a significant productivity enhancement opportunity. I've got another friend that operates a multi-billion-dollar real estate fund, commercial real estate fund. They think it's going to be at least 5 years before commercial real estate comes back, for a variety of different reasons. I mean, obviously there's other issues going on in the inner city that are causing some, wreaking havoc on that industry. But the reality is that they recognize that that shift is already happening, and that companies are already saying, yeah, I'm not going to renew my lease, and our buildings are going to look different in the future than they look today. The other trend that we're seeing is that Redfin, the real estate company, the residential real estate company, just published an article last week that surveyed the buyers throughout their network, and it was thousands of people, in terms of the number of people that will move to more rural areas from their current home as a result of no longer having to commute. And so what you're seeing is this shift away from an urban environment to more space, more land, and more rural environments where people can work from home. They don't have to commute anymore. They're setting up home offices. So homes are now having to be built with an office or a room that can be converted into a room like we're using right now. Yep. At home. My brother's a builder. And he actually reserved the domain link Zoom Room in order to be able to accomplish what he's doing. So it's a great example of where the market is shifting we're going to see the advent of tools. I mean, you know, a year ago, if you were to ask somebody, you know, what is Zoom? Only people in large corporations knew what Zoom was. Today, Zoom is like Kleenex. It's a household name, and we all use it. You know, reality is we're not on a Zoom call right now, but we're using the term Zoom.
Yeah. And
well, that's happened in 1 year.
Yeah. Well, we need the cool split screen and all that. I think
that's right.
You know, might be able to do that with Zoom.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Redfin. That's a real estate firm.
Yeah.
Okay. And some other companies that are making the shift permanently, enjoying efficiencies and lowering their operational overhead. Do you think, it's not a trick question, I sincerely would like to know, do you think that companies like that have an opportunity for e-learning or an online course idea, either externally to customers or internally to their employees? Do you see an opportunity there with online course production and creation with, I'm going to say, I guess, a lot of the companies that you're dealing with? Is there an angle there, or is there something sort of that we're looking for for it to make sense?
Yeah, no, I think there's absolutely an opportunity there. And, you know, back in the mid 2000s, I actually owned a Remax franchise myself. So I'm, you know, in addition to all of those other things, I was an owner, and we owned at a time when the online marketing and purchasing of homes was just beginning to show up as a key factor. And in fact, technology being my background was one of the angles that we used in order to promote our franchise. And so we started applying some of the 360-degree view technologies and, you know, putting up websites for specific homes in some cases, or et cetera. Yeah. But it was just at the very beginning of that. Today, what's available to a real estate agent, you know, which is a business owner, right, to a real estate agent to promote and effectively market their properties is huge. And the opportunity to use technologies like we're on right now to reach a far broader audience than they ever could in the past is huge. So, for instance, it would not be surprising to me if there's already real estate agents that are literally holding seminars about a particular home or about a location or about an attractive new neighborhood that's being built in an area that people are attracted to moving to, separate from the cities. I mean, you know, Robert, you live near Sun Valley, Idaho. That's becoming a very attractive place for people. And people are saying, look, I can live in Sun Valley and work for a major corporation that's based in Seattle. I live in a beautiful community called Gig Harbor that is a waterfront community that is just amazing. And, you know, I'm going to sound like the Chamber of Commerce for Sun Valley and for Gig Harbor right now. But the reality is that people can move to communities like this without having the burden, if you will, of the commute that we used to have to deal with. And that's becoming really attractive. And the reality is that we can reach those people today using these types of tools that never was available before. So if I'm a real estate agent, I'm looking at this and saying, who am I marketing to? Right? Who is my audience that I'm trying to reach? If I'm marketing high-end homes and there's homes that are being built in my neighborhood, I'm reaching those executives in companies that are now realizing that they don't have to spend that, you know, extra 2/3 of their rent expense line on their balance or on their income statement, and saying, you know, people like that are a prime opportunity for me to market to market to. So I'm going on to LinkedIn and I'm saying, you know, within the Northwest or on the West Coast, who are the senior executives in companies that could afford a $1.2 or $1.5 million house or condo or whatever. And I'm reaching out to them and I'm saying, hey, join my seminar on how to buy a house in this community.
Yeah. Okay.
There's scalability.
Okay. Right. So you've talked a lot about your well-earned success that came from all your hard work and your clients and what have you. Is there can you share with us a moment in your career where things weren't so great, where things maybe felt like, wow, I've kind of hit bottom. I've bottomed out. I've bottomed out. I didn't realize, I didn't know how I got here. I didn't expect this to happen. But could you share with viewers that and then your hero story? We want to know how you bounced back from a really low point career or life.
Yeah.
From a guy like you, that would be a really interesting story.
Yeah. So, I'd say that there's 2 times, and they were about 10 years separated from each other. So the first happened right around 9/11. That my second company was a company that I built right off the back of my first company. I made some really good money on my first company, invested a whole bunch of it into my second company, and was on a very significant trajectory. We had over a period of about 9 months, we were able to sign contracts with 16 of the 20 largest financial institutions in the world. Deutsche Bank was our largest customer. They were our largest investor. Wow. We were on a trajectory, and frankly, my ego was bigger than the company at the time. On 9/11, when the South Tower came down, it wiped out the North American headquarters for Deutsche Bank, and it wiped out our company on virtually at the same time. They were more concerned about where they're going to put 5,000 people in Manhattan than they were about a small company in Tacoma, Washington, that had just, effectively helped them, start to make more efficient their procurement process. And up until that point in time, I'm a man of faith, and I really had felt that God had scripted my career path to the point that it was at that point. Again, way too much arrogance and ego in the process. And I hit bottom. And one of the things that you'll find is a trend for people that have hit bottom and come back is it's never because of their own doing. It's because somebody else helped them. And in that particular case, in 2001, later in 2002, I had a friend of mine that I had ironically not realized how important it was to him at the time, but I had bailed him out of an important business tragedy. And to me, it was just something I just did, right? I didn't think about it in the context, but his name is Eric, and he picked me up and said, Todd, why don't you come alongside me and just help me with my business for a while, and we'll see if something comes out of it. And it wasn't paid, but it gave me something to do, and it gave me somebody that believed in me at the time that I was starting to question what I was doing. And 2 years later, I was the founder and CEO of another company that was on the same type of trajectory. But it took that somebody to pick me up and effectively help me dust myself off and say, something, you're valuable, you're worth more than what you think you are. And it wasn't about financially, it was about personal value, it was about character, it was about the things that mattered in life beyond the financial gains and the financial returns. So, I was able to turn that into, starting up another company. Actually, it was a company that another individual called me up and said, hey, we've got some technology that needs to be repurposed, and we think you're the guy to do it. And we think that you're the guy to build the plan around taking this to market. And we did, and we executed a great transaction to acquire some technology, and ultimately, we're able to get venture capital financing for that deal. The importance of choosing the right venture capitalist is always a key factor in that. Unfortunately, that time we didn't, but we created some opportunities and some jobs for a number of people for a long period of time in that company. The second time is as I was exiting that company. It was in 2009, and we all know the financial crash of 2009. That was not an exit. That was a bottle of wine. Literally, you think of an exit and you think about the financial returns. My financial return in that deal was $100 bottle of wine that I was given as I walked out the door from the board of directors. And that was a tough day for me because they had acted in what I consider to be a manner that was disingenuous, and showed me the door as the founder CEO of the company, which happens a lot, by the way. I'm not the only guy that's happened to, but it happened at a point in time where we had burned through all the capital that I made on my first business, and I was somewhat dependent on that income. And in 2009, when you're a CEO and founder looking for the next deal, there wasn't a lot of next deals out there. There certainly weren't anybody looking to hire another CEO. I was willing to do literally just about anything. I remember my son at the time, he was, about, 18 years old. He said, "Dad, why don't you just go to work for McDonald's?" and it was literally at that level. Again, I had another individual that is a dear friend of mine today. I knew him, and I certainly appreciated him, but he brought me alongside and said, "Todd, why don't you come and join us at our consulting company? I know that we can find stuff to do together." And I literally went from literally not being able to rub two nickels together. I mean, like, we were rationing milk and gas to put in our car.
Wow.
In 2010. I had literally a zero return tax filing. I mean, like, zero income tax filing in 2010. Yeah. 2 years later, I made over $200,000, and had learned again through other people picking me up and helping me out that you can scale yourself and you can scale your opportunities. And I was, in the middle of working with 4 or 5 different companies on showing them how to scale their business.
It's true. I made a note down here, and it says angels, and I'm not so much a man of faith at your level, admittedly, but I don't know what else to call it. And in my life, I've had a similar situation too, where I can count on a hand individuals that stepped up and were there with, with a hand to, reached out to pull me back in from drowning, figuratively, or an opportunity, or just believed in me. And I've always called them angels, and it's real. Angels do exist, and they oftentimes exist as these people that Todd's talking about that will be there for you and help you get through. So that's cool. So you've paid some dues, sounds like. Great. Thanks for sharing that. All right. So what would your advice be for somebody that is maybe feeling like they're in that situation right now, and perhaps they don't have access to folks with lots of funding and big salary jobs? That's one way to go.
Right.
Could you give us some advice on what somebody might be able to do to get the scalability, get back on their feet, start feeling good about things in life, and get some dough, some revenue rolling in with means, but a lot of talent and good work ethic? What would you advise that person to do?
Yeah, and again, this comes back to you never do it alone, right? If you try and do it yourself, you won't get out of your funk. You won't get out of your environment. One of the things that I did back in 2011, when Jeff really stuck with me, one of the things he taught me was, he said, because I was starting from scratch. He said, schedule 30-minute to 1 hour meetings, 5 times a day, 5 days a week, with people that are in your network. And when you're done with the meeting, ask them, what can I do for you?
Cool.
Number one. And number two, is there anybody you can introduce me to that can help me accomplish what I'm looking to do? I did that for 1 month. I've never had to do it since. And it was literally 1 hour. Can I buy you a cup of coffee for an hour? And the reality is that my network grew so fast, so big, that I literally have never had to do it since, because all of my networking that's done now is all done through the referrals that I get as a result of having done that for 1 month back in 2011. And I would recommend that to anybody that's looking for a job. I'd recommend it to anybody looking to expand their business. When you find somebody in that process, if you're a business owner and you're trying to expand your business, I would absolutely do that. But I'd then turn around and say, again, it's the what can I do for you that then turns it into you serving others as opposed to them serving you, which is a critical component of that. And then what it turns into is you building that network, and then identify those people. There's probably going to be somewhere between 5 and 10 of those people that you're going to say, these are people that are willing to speak into my life and willing to be mentors to me.
Yeah.
Identify those, turn them into an advisory board, introduce them to each other so they know who you're talking with and talking to, and ensure that you meet with them no less than once a month. And and then use that as a critical network for you to build your business, because they're going to have insights that you'll never know how to have. There's going to be people in that network that are going to have forgotten more about their business and your business than you will ever know. And so your job is to really learn what you can from those people. And it doesn't matter whether it's somebody in the insurance business or the legal profession or marketing or sales, et cetera. All of those components and all of those functions are important to your business. But the reality is their network that they're willing to introduce you to, once they've developed trust, will be golden.
That was awesome. That is great advice. That's the best part of our show. Like right there. I'm going to snip that one out right there. That's an extra edit. And so we have a formula. I wrote it down. We have a formula. What I thought I would say is, when you're down in the dumps, spend 30 minutes a day, roughly, let's say 3 to 5 days a week, reaching out to people in your network, people you know, I suppose, maybe even people that you don't know, but
maybe, absolutely, depends on your comfort level.
Yeah, and build rapport, introduce yourself, and make sure that you ask them, what is it that I can do for you? And who else might you know that would be interested in my talents, my skills, what I'm doing, what we talked about today? Is that what you just shared with us?
Yeah, it is. And obviously the amount of time that you spend doing it is a function of where you're currently at with your business. But if you want to scale your business at a core, from a grassroots level, that alone, and what I would do is I would spend 30 minutes at the beginning of the week and identify, or at the end of the previous week, identifying who it is that I'm going to reach out to this week and fill my calendar. And any spot that you've got in your calendar that's available, you should be putting people that you want to network with in that time slot. Reach again, whether it's somebody you know or somebody you don't know. The reality is they're going to have a network of people that are beyond your own that you're going to be able to connect with and ultimately develop trust and credibility with.
That's golden. It's great. And we have 7 minutes left for our official 1 hour show, but I almost feel like I don't want to spoil that really cool advice you just shared with us by, running off into another idea or a line of questions that aren't as cool as what you just shared with us. On behalf of myself and everybody that is watching this, we thank you for that. That's really good stuff. In fact, I'm not BSing you guys. I wrote this down. I'm gonna put this on my wall over here. I'm gonna try that. Okay, I already got one. His name is Todd. I already worked through Todd. I gotta keep going. All right. So, where can people find you, Todd, if they wanted to network with you, if they were interested in your services at JDMerit, if they were interested in getting some insights on scalability and maybe producing online courses with Course Creek, because you and I are sort of partnering on that and working together on that. What's the best way to get hold of you?
Yeah, so the best way is actually on LinkedIn. Just look up my name. There's not too many Todd Ostranders out there. Look me up on LinkedIn. Put in in the search bar Todd Ostrander JDMerit. You will find me, and send me a message on LinkedIn. I don't block my messages. I'll take a message from just about anybody, and and I'm happy to connect. And then once we've done that, then it's easy to share contact information. But that's the best way. If you want to learn more about JDMerit, just go to our website, jdmerit.com. If you're in the business of either, looking to acquire other companies, if you're an entrepreneur that's got a nice successful business, or if you're, interested in looking at what an exit would look like over the next 1 to 3 years, we can certainly help with that as well.
Fantastic. If you guys enjoyed the show, please give it a likey, click the little bell, share it with your friends, share it to other groups and what have you. And I really thank you guys for viewing. I hope this was useful for you. I thoroughly enjoyed hearing your story, Todd, and you are an inspiration. Your success is a huge inspiration to a lot of people watching this, and we got some good practical advice as well. So with that, I am going to go back to work for the rest of my day. And thank you, Todd, and thank you all for joining us in this show.
All right. Thanks, Robert. Really appreciate your time today.
You're welcome, Todd.